They tried it. They really did. They thought they could break you, humiliate you, strip you of your power. They came at you with everything they had: lies, manipulation, smear campaigns, even dragging your name through places you never stepped foot in. And yet, here you are, untouched, unshaken, unstoppable. They turned your life into a spectacle, hoping you'd crumble under the weight of their obsession. But let's be real, they only played themselves. The same people who laughed, whispered, and nodded along are now side-eyeing them, wondering why they're so consumed. And you've been watching, documenting, collecting receipts like it's payday. They called you crazy, but now they're the ones spiraling, tripping over their own contradictions, watching their empire of deception collapse in real time. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to shrink. You are the storm they prayed wouldn't come. And now, it's too late for them. Because when they came for you, they didn't just pick a fight with a person. They picked a fight with destiny. And destiny doesn't lose. They orchestrated a grand illusion, one so meticulously crafted that even the sharpest minds were deceived. Every word they spoke carried the weight of manipulation. Every narrative they spun, designed to bury the truth beneath layers of falsehood. The image they projected was flawless, a tapestry woven from half-truths and convenient distortions. And for a while, it worked. Whispers spread, assumptions solidified, and the story they fed the world took root. But illusions, no matter how masterful, have a lifespan. The first cracks appear as fleeting doubts, tiny fractures in the foundation of their deception, a slip in their words, a contradiction unnoticed by them but caught by careful ears. Something doesn't align. A shadow of unease flickers in conversations, a moment of hesitation before belief turns into scrutiny. And then, as if a veil has been lifted, the realization dawns. They were never the ones revealing the truth. They were the ones burying it. Every lie they told was supposed to tighten their grip on the narrative, to cement the perception they desperately wanted others to hold. But in their obsession, they failed to see what was unraveling. Their attempts to erase you only left their own reflection on display. And now, the ones who once nodded along begin to exchange glances. It's too much. The fixation is unmistakable. The effort too deliberate. The need to control too obvious. What once seemed like calculated whispers now sound like desperate gasps, their own fabrications turning into shackles around them. They thought they were architects of your downfall, but instead, they built a monument to their own preoccupation. There's no covering it up anymore. People see the way their conversations gravitate towards you, how your name lingers on their tongues like an obsession they can't shake. And what started as quiet amusement shifts into discomfort. They don't even recognize it yet, but the weight of their own actions is pressing down, and the realization, when it comes, will be irreversible. It begins subtly. An offhand remark, a forced joke, a casual comment laced with something sharper. Dismissible at first, just another bitter voice in the background. But then, the pattern emerges. No matter the topic, no matter the setting, the conversation always somehow bends in your direction. A moment of praise for someone else? Redirected. A discussion that has nothing to do with you. Yet, there it is again. Your presence conjured into the room like a ghost haunting their thoughts. And it doesn't go unnoticed. People exchange looks. Whispers carry a new tone. And an unspoken question lingers in the air. Why do they care so much? The scrutiny shifts, not towards you, but towards them. It's unnatural. The way their voice changes, the way their expression tightens whenever you're mentioned. This isn't simple resentment. It's something deeper, something consuming. They aren't just speaking about you, they are defined by you. And that truth, once seen, can never be unseen. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. They thought they could curse you, but God already blessed you. They plotted in the shadows, but light always exposes darkness. They whispered your name like a spell, hoping to bind your spirit. But what God ordains, no man can destroy. See, when you are chosen, you don't have to raise your voice. Your presence alone speaks louder than their accusations. You don't have to prove your worth. Your very existence is proof that favor is on your life. And that's what eats them alive. You weren't supposed to survive the fire, but you walked out without the smell of smoke. They thought they could shake you, thought their lies would uproot you, thought their schemes would break you. But how do you move someone who is anchored? How do you shake the unshakable? Every attempt to rattle your spirit collapses under its own weight. And that silence, oh, it torments them. They expected fury. They wanted retaliation. They needed a reaction. Instead, they're met with nothing but the crushing weight of their own irrelevance. So they scramble, they claw, they spin new stories, trying to regain what's slipping through their fingers. And yet, you remain untouched. You don't have to be in the room for them to feel your presence. They're laughing, talking, carrying on like you never existed until they can't help themselves. It's an itch they can't scratch, a shadow they can't outrun. Your name falls from their lips like a broken prayer. They expect the usual nods of agreement, the hushed excitement, the validation that used to come so easily. But something's changed. Instead of the reactions they crave, there's hesitation, a pause, a flicker of doubt, a moment where even the most gullible among them wonder, why are we still talking about this? Someone clears their throat, another shifts uncomfortably, eyes dart away. And there it is, the first crack in their foundation. Because your absence is louder than their presence. The tables have turned, and whether they admit it or not, they know this battle has already been won. Then, without warning, the moment arrives. A voice, level and unimpressed, finally speaks. You're still talking about that? 4 words, devoid of weight, yet carrying the force of an avalanche. A breath catches, a sentence dies before completion, and the atmosphere thickens with unspoken truths. Their stomach tightens. The realization is creeping in like a slow, inescapable tide. The ones who once leaned in eagerly now lean away, their interest dulled, their patience frayed. It wasn't supposed to be this way. If their accusations held any real weight, the damage should have been done by now, the verdict already rendered. But here you stand, unfazed, unmoved, and with every additional word they spill, the cracks in their facade only deepen. What began as casual chatter has mutated into something else entirely, something obsessive, something unsettling. And now, under the weight of their own making, they finally see what everyone else already has. The only thing they've managed to destroy is their own credibility. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. They thought they could bury the truth, but truth is like a seed. It only grows in the dark. They thought they could keep you bound, but who the sun sets free is free indeed. They spoke in whispers, plotted in shadows, thinking their deception would never be exposed. But God don't bless no mess, and now the very lies they use to trap you are becoming the chains that bind them. At first, it looked like they had the upper hand. They played the part well, wore the mask, spoke the right words. The performance was flawless, the illusion airtight. They moved with precision, dropping carefully crafted stories into the ears of the willing, twisting the narrative, shifting the blame, sculpting a version of reality where they were righteous and you were the problem. And for a while, people believed them. But here's what they didn't understand. Truth is undefeated. They spent so much time trying to convince the world you were unstable. But now, look at them. Fidgeting, stammering, contradicting themselves in the same breath. Sleepless nights are catching up with them. The weight of their own deception is crushing their chest, and they don't even see it yet. But everyone else does, because people are starting to pay attention, not just to their words, but to them. The same ones who once nodded along, entertained the gossip, whispered behind closed doors. Now they're watching with different eyes. Something ain't adding up. Why are they so rattled? Why are they so obsessed? Why are they still talking about you when you haven't said a word? And that's where the shift happens. Their empire of lies is collapsing in real time. The walls pressing in, the weight of their own accusations suffocating them. The fortress they built wasn't made of stone. It was made of paper, held together with nothing but deceit and desperation. And now, it's going up in flames. And you don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to fight, don't have to argue, don't have to scramble to clear your name. Reality is handling it for you. They are unraveling all on their own, exposing themselves with every frantic move, every desperate word. And it's too late for them to stop it, because the whispers aren't about you anymore. They're about them. And when they walk into a room, the air is different. The weight of suspicion follows them now. The same people who once eagerly listened to their tales now exchange glances, fall silent, shift in their seats. They thought they controlled the story, but now they're the ones being watched. And the irony, they played themselves. What they meant for your destruction has turned into their downfall. They dug the pit, but they fell into it themselves. And while they spiral, while they panic, while they try to figure out how they lost control, you remain, still, unshaken, unstoppable. Because when you are chosen, you don't have to fight battles that have already been won. The air around them has changed. Where once their words commanded attention, now they barely hold interest. The story they clung to so fiercely is beginning to dissolve, and they sense it, feel it, in the hesitant responses, in the lack of urgency when they speak. They reach for the familiar, trying to stir the same reactions, trying to keep their audience engaged. But the response is different now, a slow withdrawal, one person at a time, as those who once entertained their words begin to check out. Calls go unanswered, messages sit unread, conversations shift before they can take hold. At first, they brush it off, convincing themselves it's temporary, that people just need a reminder, another push to stay invested. But then it hits. This isn't a pause. This is the end. The enthusiasm is gone, the urgency has faded, and their words no longer land. Attempts to stir the same old drama are met with deflection, subject changes, uninterested nods. Anyway, moving on. So, what else is new? A clean cut, a silent rejection, and it stings more than any direct confrontation ever could. They were prepared for an argument, a fight, anything that let them keep playing the game. But silence, Silence is a void they can't fill, a verdict they can't argue against. And that's what undoes them, not being challenged, but being disregarded. They filled the air with your name, laced it with malice, and scattered it into every conversation like a warning. They wanted fear to follow your footsteps, for suspicion to stain your reputation, for people to recoil at the mere mention of you. But the plan backfired. The more they spoke, the more people noticed something was off. At first, it was just a flicker of doubt, a subtle unease that settled in quiet corners of their minds. Why is this still a topic? If they've moved on, why do they keep circling back? If this person is so irredeemable, why do they seem completely unaffected? Then the truth began to surface, not from their words, but from their fixation. The spotlight they shined so relentlessly on you only revealed their own shadow. The weight of their obsession, the sheer energy they poured into your downfall, became impossible to ignore. And suddenly, the curiosity wasn't about you, it was about them. People started watching, not to see the spectacle they promised, but to study the contrast. The silence on your end, the unwavering presence, the refusal to play into their hands. It spoke louder than anything they could ever say. Without pleading your case, without lowering yourself to their level, you had already won. Now, your name carries a different gravity, not as a cautionary tale, but as proof of endurance. The same mouths that once whispered doubts now murmur admiration. They thought they could break you, but all they did was highlight your resilience. And in the aftermath of their failed campaign, the shift begins. Conversations don't follow their script anymore. Where there was once easy compliance, now there is hesitation, a visible discomfort when they try to ignite the same tired story. The ones they counted on, the ones who once nodded along without question, have begun to withdraw. It's subtle at first, a pause before responding, an absent-minded change of subject, a loss of enthusiasm in the once eager exchanges. Then the avoidance becomes undeniable. The weight of their own words turns against them. The same crowd that indulged them now pulling away, weary of the performance. Because deep down, an uncomfortable realization has begun to settle in. If they could fixate on one person so ruthlessly, who's to say they won't turn on someone else next? And that fear, once planted, grows fast. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Proverbs 26:27. They thought they were building a throne, but they were really digging a grave. They thought they were setting a trap for you, but it was their own feet that walked into it. See, God don't play about His chosen. And when people spend their days plotting, tearing down, manipulating, and spinning lies, there comes a day when that same energy turns on them. At first, it was easy. They could say whatever they wanted, and people believed it. They could twist the facts, change the details, stir the pot, and everyone would nod along. They had the crowd, they had the control, they had the influence. But control is a fragile thing. Influence is borrowed, not owned. And when it's built on deception, it never lasts. Now, the people who once stood beside them, the ones who repeated their words, defended their actions, fed into their narrative, are starting to see it. The pattern, the obsession, the relentless need to keep a story alive that should have died a long time ago. And that's when the question creeps in like a slow chill down their spine. If they could do this to someone else, what's stopping them from doing it to me? And that's the beginning of the end. At first, it's subtle. A hesitation before responding. A glance exchanged across the room. The way someone suddenly stops engaging in the drama, then one by one, the circle starts shrinking. The ones who were once eager to hear the next update, the next scandal, the next accusation, now they're checking out. Conversations that used to be full of whispers and side eyes now end in awkward silence. Because loyalty born from manipulation isn't real loyalty at all. And manipulators, oh, they can sense when they're losing their grip. And nothing terrifies them more than irrelevance. So they do what manipulators always do when their power starts slipping. They panic. They go into overdrive, clawing at control, reaching for more outrageous accusations, pushing harder to get people to react. But instead of gaining sympathy, they get avoidance. Instead of shock, they get discomfort. Because now, they are the common denominator in every story. Now, the whispers aren't about the one they tried to destroy, the whispers are about them, and it eats at them. They feel it when they walk into a room. The air shifts, the energy is different. People don't lean in anymore, they pull away. The same audience they thrived on is now distancing themselves, realizing that the very one who called everyone else the villain might have been the true problem all along. And that's when it hits them. It's over. The control, the manipulation, the influence, it's all slipping through their fingers. They don't know how to exist without being in control of the narrative, without having people listen, without being at the center of attention. But they burned too many bridges. They played too many games. And now, they're the ones left standing in the ruins of their own destruction. And the best part? You never had to lift a finger. You didn't have to retaliate. You didn't have to scheme. You didn't have to fight. The weight of their own actions did all the work for you. Because when you are chosen, God will prepare a table for you in the presence of your enemies. And right now, they're watching you feast while they starve on the emptiness of their own deception. It was never about rumors. It was never about petty grievances. It was never about the words they spewed. This was always something deeper, something inevitable, a collision between forces that were never meant to coexist. And now the truth is undeniable. You were never just a passing annoyance, never just another target in their game. You were a disruption, an anomaly, a presence they couldn't ignore. At first, the question haunted you. Why? What was it about you that made them latch on, that made them rage, that made them so determined to erase you? But now you understand. It was never about what you did. It was about what you are. Something in you unsettled them. Something in you made them feel exposed, inadequate, powerless. And so they fought, hard, relentlessly, thinking they could force you to shrink, thinking they could twist your image enough to dim your presence. But they failed to grasp one thing. You were never built to be small. You were meant to disrupt, to shift, to challenge the illusions they hide behind. And now, that light has spread beyond their control. Now, their influence is fading. Their stories are unraveling, and the very power they tried to strip from you is the force that now leaves them in the dark. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. They thought they could write the ending to your story, but God already penned the final chapter. They plotted, they schemed, they wove their web of lies, convinced they could control how this would play out. But how can clay tell the potter what to create? They were always fighting a losing battle, trying to shift a destiny that was never in their hands to begin with. They exhausted every trick in their playbook. Lies, manipulation, false accusations, half-truths stretched so thin they snapped under the weight of scrutiny. And still, it wasn't enough. They watched, confused, frustrated, as you kept standing, unbothered, undeterred, unstoppable. At first it looked like they had the upper hand. Their voice was louder. Their words spread further. The crowd leaned in when they spoke, but deception is a house built on sand, and when the storm comes, it crumbles fast. One moment, they were standing at the top, confident, untouchable. The next, the ground beneath them gave way, and their empire of lies collapsed. Now, they feel it. The shift in the air, the unease in the room when they walk in. The same people who once entertained their words now hesitate before agreeing. The ones who cheered them on have grown quiet, and silence is the loudest answer of all. Because you don't have to fight a battle that was never yours to begin with. You didn't have to expose them. They exposed themselves. You didn't have to clear your name. Truth has a way of surfacing all on its own. They thought they were winning, thought they could mold reality to their will. But the moment they lost their audience, they lost everything. And that's what terrifies them the most. They try one last time, one final desperate attempt to regain control. They spin new lies, reach for bigger, wilder accusations, hoping someone, anyone, will listen. But all they get is blank stares, awkward silences, and conversations that move on without them. No one is listening anymore, and that's when it finally sinks in. The game is over. The power they thought they had, gone. The influence they held over others, faded. And the person they tried to destroy, still standing, still rising, still unshaken. Because when God has his hand on your life, no enemy, no lie, no weapon can stop what he has already set in motion. Losing control makes them reckless. The carefully measured accusations morph into frantic outbursts. The once subtle insinuations twist into chaotic rants, and the mask they so carefully curated begins to crack under the weight of their own desperation. What once passed as calculated becomes messy, erratic, transparent. Those who once entertained their claims now turn away, weary of the endless cycles, disinterested in the theatrics. There is no more intrigue, no more validation, no more energy wasted on feeding the drama they so desperately need to survive. The silence around them is suffocating, their efforts to reignite the fire only serving to reveal how little remains of what they built. And in the end, they are left with the only thing they ever truly feared. Not defeat, not exposure, but irrelevance. They make one last attempt, a frantic, reckless grasp for control, conjuring new lies, stretching the truth until it snaps, trying to create a scandal loud enough to pull people back in. But instead of gasps and murmurs, they are met with nothing, no reaction, no outrage, no interest. The weight of silence suffocates them. The authority they once held through manipulation has crumbled, leaving them shouting into an empty room. The cycle they relied on, planting doubt, igniting suspicion, orchestrating division, has been broken, and they are the only ones who haven't accepted it. The world they crafted so meticulously is gone, slipping through their fingers like sand. And they feel it, the shift, the loss, the reality pressing in. The moment they lost control, they lost everything. They fought to twist the narrative, to keep their grip on people's perception, to mold reality into a version that served them. But without an audience, their influence is meaningless. They spent so much time building a kingdom of deception, only to find themselves exiled from it. Now they sit in the wreckage of their own making, watching as doors close, as conversations move on without them, as the power they once wielded disappears without a trace. They resist at first, refusing to accept that it's over, clinging to the hope that someone, anyone will still listen. But one by one, people slip away. Slowly at first, then all at once. The ones who once entertained their stories stop responding. The allies they depended on turn distant, and their words no longer command attention. They reach out, but there's no answer. They try to stir conflict, but no one bites. They attempt to resurrect the drama, but no one cares. The realization is crushing. They are irrelevant. Some vanish completely, deleting traces of themselves, attempting to outrun the consequences of their own destruction. Others linger, convinced they can rebuild what was lost. But no matter where they go, the truth follows, because the problem was never the circumstances. It was them. They tore down bridges they thought they'd never need, shattered trust they believed was unbreakable, and now they sit alone in the void they once tried to pull you into. Their downfall was never your doing. It was always in their own hands. They tried to destroy you, but in the end, the only thing they ever destroyed was themselves. And while they fade into obscurity, you remain, untouched, unwavering, and ascending beyond their reach.